Daily Words of God. God's wrath is a safeguard for all the forces of justice and all positive things. God's intolerance of offense is His unique essence. God's wrath is His unique disposition. God's majesty is His unique essence. The principle behind God's anger is the demonstration of His identity and status, which only He possesses. It goes without saying that this principle is also a symbol of the essence of the unique God Himself. God's disposition is His own inherent essence, which is not changed at all by the passage of time, and nor is it altered by changes of geographical location. His inherent disposition is His intrinsic essence. Regardless of whom He carries out His work upon, His essence does not change, and neither does His righteous disposition. When one angers God, that which God sends forth is His inherent disposition. At this time, the principle behind His anger does not change, nor do His unique identity and status. He does not grow angry because of a change in His essence or because different elements arise from His disposition, but because man's opposition against Him offends His disposition. Man's flagrant provocation of God is a severe challenge to God's own identity and status. In God's view, when man challenges Him, man is contesting Him and testing His anger. When man opposes God, when man contests God, when man continuously tests God's anger, and it is at such times when sin runs rampant, God's wrath will naturally reveal and present itself. Therefore, God's expression of His wrath is a symbol that all evil forces will cease to exist, and it is a symbol that all hostile forces will be destroyed. This is the uniqueness of God's righteous disposition and of God's wrath. When God's dignity and holiness are challenged, when the forces of justice are obstructed and unseen by man, then God will send forth His wrath. Because of God's essence, all those forces on earth which contest God, oppose Him, and contend with Him are evil, corrupt, and unjust. They come from and belong to Satan. Because God is just and is of the light and flawlessly holy, thus all things evil, corrupt, and belonging to Satan will vanish when God's wrath is unleashed. Although the outpouring of God's wrath is one aspect of the expression of His righteous disposition, God's anger is by no means indiscriminate regarding its target, and nor is it without principle. On the contrary, God is not at all quick to anger, and nor does He reveal His wrath and majesty lightly. Moreover, God's wrath is quite controlled and measured. It is not at all comparable to how man is wont to flare into a rage or vent his anger. Many conversations between man and God are recorded in the Bible. The words of some of the individual people involved in the conversations were shallow, ignorant, and infantile. But God did not strike them down, and nor did He condemn them. In particular, during Job's trial, how did Jehovah God treat Job's 3 friends and the others after He heard the words that they spoke to Job? Did He condemn them? Did He rage at them? He did nothing of the sort. Instead, He told Job to make entreaties on their behalf and to pray for them, and God Himself did not take their faults to heart. These instances all represent the primary attitude with which God treats humanity, corrupt and ignorant as it is. Therefore, the unleashing of God's wrath is by no means an expression of His mood, nor is it a way for Him to give vent to His feelings. Contrary to man's misunderstanding, God's wrath is not a complete outburst of rage. God does not unleash His wrath because He is unable to control His own mood, or because His anger has reached its boiling point and must be vented. On the contrary, His wrath is a display and a genuine expression of His righteous disposition, and it is a symbolic revelation of His holy essence. God is wrath, and He does not tolerate being offended. This is not to say that God's anger does not distinguish among causes or is unprincipled. It is corrupt humanity that has an exclusive claim on unprincipled, random outbursts of rage of a kind that does not distinguish between causes. Once a man has status, he will often find it difficult to control his mood, and so he will enjoy seizing upon opportunities to express his dissatisfaction and vent his emotions. He will often flare up in rage for no apparent reason, so as to reveal his ability and let others know that his status and identity are different from those of ordinary people. Of course, corrupt people without any status also often lose control. Their anger is frequently caused by damage to their private interests. In order to protect their own status and dignity, corrupt mankind will frequently vent their emotions and reveal their arrogant nature. Man will flare up in anger and vent his emotions in order to defend and uphold the existence of sin. And these actions are the ways in which man expresses his dissatisfaction. They brim with impurities, with schemes and intrigues, with man's corruption and evil, and more than anything else, they brim with man's wild ambitions and desires. When justice clashes with wickedness, man's anger will not flare up in the defense of the existence of justice or to uphold it. On the contrary, when the forces of justice are threatened, persecuted, and attacked, man's attitude is one of overlooking, evading, or flinching away. However, when facing the forces of evil, man's attitude is one of accommodating, of bowing and scraping. Therefore, man's venting is an escape for evil forces, an expression of the rampant and unstoppable evil conduct of the fleshly man. When God sends forth His wrath, however, all evil forces will be stopped. All sins that harm man will be curbed. All hostile forces that obstruct God's work will be made apparent, separated, and cursed, while all of Satan's accomplices who oppose God will be punished and rooted out. In their place, God's work will proceed free of any obstacles. God's management plan will continue to develop step by step according to schedule, and God's chosen people will be free of Satan's disturbance and deceit, while those who follow God will enjoy God's leadership and provision among tranquil and peaceful surroundings. God's wrath is a safeguard preventing all evil forces from multiplying and running rampant, and it is also a safeguard that protects the existence and propagation of all things that are just and positive, and eternally guards them from suppression and subversion.